Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here and welcome to my Doctor Who Season 12 ranking. So I'll be ranking the 5 stories from Tom Baker's first season as the Doctor, which is Season 12 of the classic series, and overall. So, yeah, without further ado, the Season 12 ranking. Before we start, here are the 5 stories. They are Robot, the Ark In Space, the Sontaran Experiment, Genesis of the Daleks, and Revenge of the Cybermen. So, I'm not going to waste any more time, so let's get right into this. Season 12 is a great season. It's one of the best, it's one of the stronger ones, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have its weak points. And with number 5, we possibly have the weakest story, weakest season finale since season 1, in my opinion. And number 5 is, of course, Revenge of the Cybermen. Considering we had to wait nearly about 6.5 years since their last appearance in The Invasion, and it's going to be nearly another 7 years till their next one in Earthshock, the Cybermen's return and only story in the 1970s is absolutely pathetic. The Cybermen are pathetic. They're too humanoid. They're made too human. The Vogons, the villainous Vogons, are pointless, and the side characters are slightly forgettable. We've got the weakest performance of Elizabeth Sladen since she started, and the weakest Sarah Jane moments of this series so far. And that's not even talking about when she's poisoned by the Cybermats. No, I'm talking about afterwards. Afterwards, Sarah Jane is at her weakest since the Time Warrior. Talk about character digression. And it's a weak, really weak story with really weak direction. It's made, in fact, I think what I was saying in the review about how the direction could have made the story better, but it didn't. I actually think it makes it worse. I think the direction actually makes this story worse rather than better, which it should have done, but didn't. So in the end, Revenge of the Cybermen is just, it makes the Cybermen pathetic, and it's just otherwise not that great. It's not boring, it's not dull, but it's not good. It's not good. So, here it is. Number 4. Number 4 is one that's probably going to be forgotten by a lot of people, but it's still pretty, considering the rest of these stories are actually really great, considering the last one, especially. But I don't think this one, I think this one is the weakest of the great ones. In fact, it's borderline in great, very good. I mean, yeah, it's great. It's low great, I would say. So, yeah, number 4 is the Sontaran Experiment. Not quite as good as the Time Warrior, but still around the similar level, just a little bit low. This one is a very location-based story, and I think that's what works in it, that its advantage. Again, Revenge of the Cybermen, the location stuff was probably the best stuff about that story. This time, I think the Doctor and Steyer's fight is good. I think Steyer's plan with the experiments are pretty good, and yeah, I think it's actually a pretty decent 2-part story. But I don't think it's perfect. I'm not so keen on the interactions with the Doctor and the 3 spaceship crash people in the first episode. And the Sontaran trying to be made to be a surprise when it's in the title. I know they do this quite a lot in the classic series with monsters being surprised and their names are in the titles. But it's especially not very good here, because it's supposed to be a surprise for Sarah Jane as well as the audience, but it just doesn't quite work. I mean, I will say this, it's better than the Planet of the Daleks one, where the Doctor was trying to find the Daleks, and then part 1's cliffhanger was him finding a Dalek and he's surprised. So it's better than that, but it's still pretty weak. I can see why they just outright said Cybermen. That's who we're up against before they even appeared in Revenge of the Cybermen, although that was also pretty weak. They should have just did what they did with the Daleks and Genesis of the Daleks. So, in the end, Sontaran Experiment is good, but it's not amazing. That's why it's number 4, but it's still much better than Revenge of the Cybermen. Number 3. This one was actually, I actually had Sontaran Experiment at 2 before I changed my list around. But since with that one being lowered, I've raised the next 2. And this one is actually had a better time with this one on the rewatch. I thought it was a fun, entertaining story and had some great stuff going for it. Robot, as the 12th Doctor would say. Yep, Robot. A pretty fun, enjoyable post-regeneration story that has a pretty good mystery. And yeah, it does turn into King Kong for kids at the end, and I'm not incredibly impressed by that. I mean it's alright, but I don't love it. I preferred the story with it earlier on. The more espionage-esque story. I suppose I'm more of an espionage fan, but because I'm more of a spy film fan, but than giant monster ones. But it still really works well, apart from the special effects. And yeah, I think the character is actually really great. I think the villains are actually quite intimidating. Certainly Miss Winters, she's quite intimidating in scenes. And their organisation are supposed to be presented like Nazis, considering we actually get actual Nazi-esque characters in an upcoming story. It's a bit of a surprise, but oh well. And yeah, it's actually quite interesting using science as terrorism, in a way, as a method of terrorism. And it's also quite fun to see the Doctor interacting with the Brigadier and Sarah Jane, and also Harry, who becomes a companion here, and Benton. And it's quite a good story and has some good stuff. I would have liked to have had a bit more of the 4th Doctor trying to find himself, having his post-regeneration moments in Part 1. I think he snapped it up. He got back to normal. He got to normal pretty quickly, considering how the other 2 and future incarnations would take an episode or 2 or the length of a story in the new series case, to find themselves and get it in. I mean, Tom Baker, he's pitch perfect from the second, but as for the Doctor, the character himself, they pretty much seem to deliver the post-regeneration stuff quickly and early, and then get it out of the way for the story, which part of me finds that okay, and part of me wishes that we had a little bit more of it. Not saying it should go into the next episode, but he should find himself by the end of the first one, as opposed to about halfway through. But that being said, it's still a really good story and has some great moments. So, Robot, a really great way to start Tom Baker's era off. Number 2 is widely considered one of the greatest stories of all time, and by a huge majority is considered the number 1 best story of all time. And whilst I don't love it as much as everybody else, after this rewatch, I do love it, besides some problems I've had that I mentioned in the review of it, so I won't worry about them here. But it's certainly despite those, it's an amazing story and really brilliant. I am, of course, talking about Genesis of the Daleks. Yeah, like I said, I've had my nitpicks with it. I think it is a bit slow in some places. I think some scenes could have been cut. I get annoyed with some characters. Granted, quite a few of them are due to context, so I can look past that, but other ones not so much. Sarah Jane leading an escape at the end of Part 2 Part 3, it sort of becomes pointless in the grand scheme of the story, though it is the peak of Sarah Jane's character at this point of the season, especially consider this point of her time with the Doctor going from the Time Wars to Revenge of the Cybermen. It's her peak, and then she gets a massive drop in Revenge of the Cybermen. So maybe I shouldn't be too harsh on that scene after all. Of that part of the story. After all, I should probably like it more. Okay, I will accept it's better than what she gets in Revenge of the Cybermen. However, this story is still really amazing, and it made me love my rewatch for the review made me love the story just in time for the review, dare I say. Bit like Inferno, come to think of that. In fact, quite a few other stories. But yeah, just in time for the review, it made me love Genesis of the Daleks, and So, Genesis of the Daleks, or how I stopped worrying and learned to love Genesis of the Daleks, apart from a few nitpicks that I still have with the story that I've always had since first viewing. Yeah, still an amazing story. Oh, and Michael Wisher is just amazing as Davros. And I've always said this, I've stood by this since I've watched this story. Best Dalek voices of the classic series. Best Dalek voices pre-2005 in the TV series, excluding expanded media, because otherwise then I would say 2000 due to Big Finish. So, and yeah, and possibly the best Davros, Michael Wisher. I do love Terry Malloy, I do love Julian Beach, not so much David Goodison, but I do think Michael Wisher is the definitive Davros, despite only having this one story. I think if he was in Destiny of the Daleks, which he would have been if he wasn't due to other commitments, but if he was in Destiny of the Daleks, I think he would make that story a bit better. And he'd just make the other Davros stories even better as well, but he definitely shines here. And yeah, and Peter Miles gives his best performance as a supporting character ever. And I think he comes back in iDavros as Nyder, the iDavros series. I don't know if he's in any other audios, maybe one or two, or maybe in that Sarah Jane series from 2003. I'm not sure. He's certainly in the iDavros ones. And I think he died last year, which was a massive shame. So R.I.P. Peter Miles. You were an amazing secondary villain in this story, and you're alright villain in Invasion of Dinosaurs. I mean, you weren't that great, but the character wasn't that great, but the performance was amazing, and you did an amazing performance as a prick scientist in Doctor and Disloyals. But Genesis of the Daleks, neither in that story and iDavros, and will be what he'll always be remembered as, and you can bloody well see why. So overall, Genesis of the Daleks, besides some problems I still have with the story, it's still fucking amazing. But not as good as my number one. Number one I've always enjoyed, and despite, again, having some issues with it, that, again, I picked up on this review, this rewatch, I've picked up on them before, but more of a problem this time around than before. But despite those, I still consider this a bloody great story, and this is the Ark in Space. Yeah, The Ark in Space is one of my favourite stories of all time. It's also, fun fact, the favourite story of both Russell T Davies and Stephen Moffat, the first two new series, revived series, showrunners of the revived era. I don't know about Chris Chibnall. I don't know what his favourite story is. I would say not anything written by Pip and Jane Baker, knowing he was one of the people who outright criticised him. So I would say not any of those stories, and probably not very many from the mid to late 80s either. But I'm not sure what his favourite story is, to be honest. I'm sure he'll let us know at some point. But Ark in Space, and it also inspired Ridley Scott when making Alien, apparently. And like I said in the review, you can clearly see where he got some inspiration from. But besides that, you got some great characters. I mean, Noah is a bit of a prick in part 2, but he gets better as he continues to turn into a woman, as he still retains some humanity with him. Vira is probably my favourite supporting character of the entire season after Nyder. And Davros, of course, and the Brigadier and Benton. But besides the Brigadier, Benton, Nyder and Davros, Vira is probably my favourite supporting character of the season. And I think besides Lipri, who is the one who is revived and then killed in part 2. No, scratch that. Yeah, there's another guy who's not that great either. But there's certainly one of the other guys is certainly good. He's the guy who read Red. He sacrifices himself and gets the Doctor out of the way before the shuttle goes off. I think the other two aren't that the two green suited ones aren't that useful in the story. I think they're pretty weak, and well, I wouldn't say pretty weak, but I think they're pretty bit pointless. I think Lipri could have stayed alive and taken the other guy's place and then killed when that guy gets killed. That could have been when Lipri dies. And don't worry about the other one, and the guy in red, he stays on. But, I like the guy in red. I'll just say, the guy in red whose name I can't remember, who's in parts 3 and 4, I like him a lot. not so keen on the two green guide ones. Literally from part 2, and the other guy from part 3. I think he dies in that one. Maybe he survives a little bit into part 4. I think it's Rogan, the red suited one. Not red suited, the one who wears a bit of red on his red with his. It's white. They wear white costumes, and they've got these colours on them. I think Vira's yellow. Sarah Jane has blue when she's put into the when she's mistaken for one of them. The Lipri and the other guy are green. The ones I can't remember. The one I can't remember. And Noah and Rogan, I believe it was, the guy I liked, are red. I think Dune, the guy that the Wirren implanted its eggs into, was also green. I think that's Tech, whilst red is Commander and yellow is Doctor. I don't know about blue. I suppose maybe that's I don't know, social services, I guess, or something. Society, I don't know, society services. But you know, Vira is one of my favourite supporting characters. I like Rogan, I believe it was, and despite Noah being a prick in the second episode, he still retains some humanity when he's a Wirren in the later two, and he's proves to be a pretty good one there. And the actor does a great job. I'm not so worried about the other two, though. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to say. But yeah, Ark in Space, still a really great story. Some great sets. The Wirren are actually pretty menacing creatures, all things considered. I mean, maybe some people will probably laugh at the design and also the bubble wrap on Noah, and also some of the bubble wrap or plasticky things that are used as the props to represent the Wirren's tray or whatever. But besides that, it's still a really good story and has some really entertaining stuff. And the first episode is a great build-up to mystery, what's going on, build-up, just exploring the arc before the real story kickstarts. And when the story does kickstart, it's still really good. It's an enjoyable adventure. And yeah, really an amazing story. It's not perfect, but, well, it's nearly perfect. I mean, a few nitpicks, but besides that, amazing. So that's it from my Season 12 ranking. We'll just recap the list again. Number 5 is Revenge of the Cybermen. Number 4 is the Sontaran Experiment. Number 3 is Robot. I'm not very good at these Peter Capaldi impressions, am I? Number 2 is Genesis of the motherfucking amazing Daleks. I mean, Genesis of the Daleks. Or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Genesis of the Daleks. And number 1 is Alien. I mean, the Ark in Space. Number 1 is the Ark in Space, and dare I say, it's a much times many more matches times better Ark story than the Ark. So anyway, that's it from me. Thank you for watching. Like I said at the end of my Revenge of the Cybermen review, I'll be taking a break between Doctor Who Season 12 and Season 13 reviews due to me helping out at the Spotlight Theatre in Hoddesdon, Hertfordshire, United Kingdom. Where the Broxbourne Theatre Company are putting on a production of Annie throughout the week, and I'm helping backstage. So I'll be doing that throughout the week. It's not just during the show, and also just setting up the sets and the last couple of technical and dress rehearsals, and then the shows. So yes, I'll be doing that, and then after that I'll be resuming my Doctor Who reviews, starting Season 13 off with a story that I find really great, Terror of the Zygons. So, really great. I mean, I love Terror of the Zygons. I mean, maybe not as much as Ark in Space and Genesis of the Daleks, but I love Terror of the Zygons, so expect a positive review for that one. At least I hope it will be positive. I mean, sometimes had some actually didn't turn out that way, or say negative and say actually it didn't turn out that way either. So, but I would expect a positive review. But we'll see. Okay, but I certainly love it. Anyway, that's it from me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.
Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel.
I apologise to future me. Or how I start